From the TV studio at Phoenixville High School, welcome to this Phantom TV Sports Podcast focusing on Major League Baseball. I'm Logan Perrone. Joining me on this segment are Bryce Palcko and PJ Sullivan. Guys, how are you today?
I'm good, Logan. How about yourself?
Doing very good. Loving the weather. It's a little hot, but ideal. Bryce, how are you?
I'm doing great, Logan.
That's great. You know who else is doing great? Jackie Brantley Jr. of the Red Sox. 29-game hit streak. 29 games. That's, I have to say, quite amazing for this, kind of live dead ball era thing they talk about. I don't really see a difference in it. I say if you're going to be hitting well, then it's going to show up in 29 games, 350 batting average. That's showing up.
Go ahead, Bryce.
I mean, if you're the Red Sox, you got to love this. You're having somebody that, besides David Ortiz and Dustin Pedroia, leading this team. He's been one of the most consistent hitters throughout this 29-game hitting streak. I don't think he's going to break Joe DiMaggio's record, but he may come pretty close if he keeps this up the rest of the season.
I don't think anybody's going to ever catch that
DiMaggio's record's untouchable. Well, his stats are looking incredible for this season. He only played 74 games last year, and he's played 45 so far this year. But the jump in stats is incredible. He already has one more hit than he did last year. He's chasing his home run total. He's already at 8 as opposed to the 10 he hit last year. Hit 34 RBIs, he currently has 34 RBIs, and he had 43 last year. His batting average is up incredible 101 points.
It's definitely helping the Boston Red Sox. They're on the top of the AL East division, and they're going to linger up top there for a while, especially when you have Brantley the way he's hitting. And then you had Bogaerts. He's got an 18-game hit streak, and you're just thinking, what's clicking for the Red Sox? Last year they weren't looking too good, and this year all of a sudden, boom, they're out of the gates. They're looking, I'd say, as good as they were when they won the World Series in 2013.
Well, they've got some great leadership out of David Ortiz, Dustin Pedroia, even Xander Bogaerts and Mookie Betts, some young leaders in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and their pitching rotation, I'd say, I personally thought it struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season, but it's definitely gotten the ball rolling in their bullpen. You mix the two, and with the way that your offense is hitting, you're going to stay on top of your division.
Well, I mean, it also helps when this team is playing probably the best baseball we've seen so far this season. Their pitching has been pretty good. Joe Kelly had a no-hitter going in one of the most recent games, lost it in the 6th inning or 7th inning, somewhere around there, and just were not able to hit his spots on that one, but the Red Sox were able to win that game.
And Bryce, there's good baseball, and it's definitely shown in the American League. And I'm not just talking about that fight between Rougned Odor and Bautista, and I'd just say the whole Rangers-Blue Jays rosters that came out fighting each other after Bautista kind of took a cheap slide at Odor for retaliation against Matt Bush hitting him, dating back to last season's incident where Jose Bautista had that amazing bat flip that I'm not going to forget because I was watching that game live. I'm not going to forget that. It was a very intense game. Tempers flew that whole series, and it's just coming back to haunt both these teams.
Well, that slide by Bautista was pretty cheap. I'm going to have to agree with you there. However, I don't think that was the right decision of Odor to land that punch on his face, Bautista, he's a great player, but he's very showy. He could just call him out in an interview or something like that. He doesn't need to bring out the fist, and then that cost him a big paycheck and 8 games.
And I mean, I don't think saying in an interview would have really done anything. I feel like Odor standing up for his teammates, standing his ground, kind of set an example. Not necessarily a good example, but it set an example.
Getting suspended 8 games is a great example, isn't it, Logan?
I think it's not a good example, but it's not necessarily a bad example because, I mean, you're standing up for your teammates. I feel like that's important.
How's that standing up for your teammates, though? He just slid right into him. He's standing up for himself.
I still feel like you're standing up for your teammates because he's playing cheap ball because he had to, be a jerk last offseason.
All right, well, if during that home run, what would you have done if you hit a 3-run home run to save or extend your team season to the next round of the playoffs?
I would have rounded the bases and touched home plate, scored the run, game goes on.
No, you wouldn't have.
Those players, if they get hit and they know if they think it's on purpose, they won't go at another position player. They'll go at the pitcher.
Yes, that was my problem. He went after Odor on a cheap slide. Why didn't you just go out to the mound and punch Matt Bush? I mean, Who cares about Matt Bush? No offense. He's not a big name player. A guy like Rougned Odor, who's really popular in Texas, and I'd say in baseball, he's at least from this fight gained some popularity. Don't go out there and fight him. Go fight Matt Bush. Go start something with him.
But if you're Jose Bautista, you have to be looking at what this could do. You know, you're supposed to be setting an example for these young players and these little kids watching the game. What are they going to do? They get hit, and they're allowed to slide. Are they going to go after the second baseman?
All right. Well, on that slide, you don't need to take it out of him. You could just stare down the pitcher or something, kind of send a message, don't mess around with me.
This isn't the first time Jose Bautista has done something like this. Remember last year against the Baltimore Orioles?
Him and Adam Jones exchanged words on Bautista's home turf. And that was a little show when I saw that. I felt like, Bautista's kind of one of those guys that, he knows he's a good player, and when something doesn't go his way, he's going to have a little bit of an attitude towards it. But that's when I first started to notice that Bautista was that kind of player that shows a lot of emotion on the diamond.
Yes, he does show a lot of emotion, but he also has to be careful with what he does.
And I just think, though, that Rougned Odor, I feel like his actions were justified. And, the suspensions, an 8-game suspension, that seems like a lot. I would have maybe lessened it up a bit, and I honestly would have gave more than 1 game to Bautista.
I don't know if you guys saw it, but he was okay with the punishment.
Okay with the punishment and the fine.
Chase Utley had an even worse slide last year in the NLCS, I believe it was, and he broke Ruben Tejada's leg. And they gave him 2-game suspension. He appealed, and they overturned. Bautista gets a 1-game suspension for a much lesser slide.
Well, and I feel like that Chase Utley slide caused what they call the Chase Utley rule. So, there wasn't really a rule last season that was going to call him out. It was a really cheap slide. And Chase Utley, being a former Philly, we know he's way better than that. It's just something that you can't really, at that point in the season last year, you couldn't really say, well, he's out and whatnot. So his appeal and overturning of the suspension,
he's not a key contributor to the Dodgers, but he loves to win. He wants to be in that dugout. He wants to be on that bench. He wants to be part of that team.
Well, I don't know if you guys realize this, but Jose Bautista, that's not the only illegal slide he's had this year. He had one in, I believe it was Tampa Bay, where he slid, tried to break up a double play, and hooked the shortstop's foot as he went to make the throw, and they reviewed it. They called it a double play and the game.
And, well, then again, I'm not going to 100% defend Odor because, I went on Twitter, and one of the Blue Jays pitchers, I think it was Brandon Morrow, sent out a tweet of multiple pictures of Rougned Odor sliding into the shortstop to break up a double play. So, I feel like what Odor did, standing up for his teammates, was justified. But going after Bautista for a cheap slide, obviously that wasn't justified.
Well, yeah, if he's guilty of all the slides himself, he has no right to go after Bautista like that. Maybe if he never does it, like if he was a squeaky clean player, but which he obviously isn't, like you just said, and Brandon Morrow pointed that out.
Yeah, and guys, I want to go off the AL side, go over to the National League side, specifically the East, and just how close that division is. You kind of got to exclude the Braves when you talk about it because, they're not having a real good season. They fired manager Freddie Gonzalez. So, other than them, it's a really close division.
How about them Phillies, Logan?
I'm loving the Phillies. They're young players doing really well. Tommy Joseph, they called up recently. He's doing well. Franco's hitting the ball. Odubel's hitting the ball. Aaron Nola's throwing very well. And I feel like their youth is really starting to prosper in the major league level.
Well, if you're a Phillies fan, you definitely have to love this. This is probably the best baseball we've seen since they won the World Series.
2011, I'd
2011
say was probably
was
their
an incredible
last
year.
really good season.
That was their best record. They won NL East Championship 5 years in a row, going from 2007 to 2011. And 2011 was their best record out of those 5 years.
And, with their youth, I'd have to say they just called up their number 1 prospect, J.P. Crawford, number 3 on MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects. They called him up to AAA, so he's getting even closer. And I believe it was Pat Gillick that said 2017, 2018 could be the year. And the way that the Phillies are performing and the way that their prospects are going through the system at the speed that they are, I'm feeling like 2017 might be a year that the Phillies can contend.
Well, this all starts with the management. Pete McCannon's done a great job since he took over last year for Ryan Sandberg, I believe it was.
Ryan Sandberg.
And he just knows how to put these players in positions where he knows that they will be successful, not only in the lineup but also in the field.
Well, you got to give all the credit to the pitching, and nothing but the pitching. Phillies had the second worst offense in the whole MLB, only in front of the Atlanta Braves, who are dismal, 12-33. Their pitching's been incredible, and their hitting. Isn't their team batting average below 220?
It's in that area, I'd say. It's in that area. So, yeah, they're definitely not hitting as well as they could be. I mean, yeah, like I said, you're seeing the youth hit, but, you have guys like older guys like Ryan Howard and Carlos Cerise. Yeah, they're still playing all right, but they're not at the level that I feel like the prospects coming up in the youth are at, because I feel like the youth are up higher on the totem pole, and then you got the veterans that are, on the end of their careers. They're starting to lose some of their versatility as a player.
Well, their pitching's been, there's no question about it. If they had just an average pitching staff, they would not be in the place they are today, 26-21, good for the 9th best record in MLB.
And I have to mention their number 5 starter, Vince Velasquez. I did not even know this kid existed before the beginning of the season. Then all of a sudden, this kid comes out, throws a gem for his first start of the season, and has been riding on that ever since. And then you have Aaron Nola, who's just, killing it at the age that he's at, really showing that the Phillies do have life in the near future.
I think one thing you need to do is get Jared Eichhoff off of the pitching staff and call someone up like Ethan Martin. Is he still in the system?
I believe we don't have Ethan Martin. We might. I don't know the farm system. We'd have to check up on that. But yes, I agree. Eichhoff, I feel like he's more of a bullpen kind of guy, maybe short relief. Because I've seen him. He kind of can get through that first, second, even the third inning. But you start trying to stretch him longer, and it's just not really where he is. Over 5 losses already.
Yeah, his record's 2-6, and his ERA is almost 4. I mean, his ERA is respectable at a 3.86, but his record is not good at all.
And I feel like Hellickson, when they got him during the offseason, everybody thought that they added a mediocre amateur guy, and I 100% agree with that. But I have to say that he's definitely not done as bad as I thought he was going to do. I believe that he's led that rotation in the veteran role that they needed, and he's definitely, setting the tone for the older guys on the Phillies team to step up.
Well, the Phillies already brought one pitcher up from the minors, Adam Morgan, the southpaw. He came in, he filled Charlie Morton's spot after Charlie Morton suffered an injury that forced him to miss the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I personally, I love Adam Morgan. I like the way he pitches. He has a really good form, but I feel like he's not really at the level of where you can say he's one of our good starters. He's a guy that can go out there and give you 5 or 6 good innings, and then you kind of got to work your bullpen in. He's got an ERA that's over 5. He's only 1-2, and I feel like you mix him in with the bullpen, and you get a good outing. You try to stretch him too long, or you don't let him go enough, and you're not going to get a good result out of it.
Well, there's another thing about the Phillies, the bullpen. Earlier in the season, they were really struggling. They couldn't get the job done. Phillies had a lead, brought the bullpen in. They continuously blow the game. These last few months, they have really been something else to watch. Genmar Gomez, moving him to the closer, he's got 18 saves.
Yeah, and I like to highlight Hector Neris, one of the better guys, I think, on the bullpen. He's only 26. He has an ERA under 2. He has 36 strikeouts in 27 innings. And I feel like that's just something that the bullpen needs to build on. Gomez doing as good as he is in the closer spot, and Neris doing his job when he needs to come in and get the job done. And I feel like the Phillies as a whole are good, but they still have their flaws. And if they want to compete with a team like the Mets, who do have a really stellar pitching staff, and I'd say a pretty good offense, and they also want to compete with the Nationals.
You know what I think the Phillies need to do to compete with the teams like that? Get a corner outfielder who can hit. I mean, Cornelius Randolph, he's very talented, but he's still pretty young, very inexperienced at the pro level. He can do some hitting from what I've seen. Nick Williams, another player.
Yeah, I saw Nick Williams down in Clearwater this past March, and I saw him and I thought, all right, this kid's pretty good. And then I saw him hit. The way he approaches an at-bat, I feel like it's something that all the players on the Phillies who aren't hitting should really try to mimic. I mean, this kid, I saw him maybe a few at-bats, and I think he got 3 hits and maybe 6 at-bats I saw.
Well, talking about the corner outfield, Peter Borges has not been who the Phillies need this year. You know, with Aaron Altair going down with an injury to start the season.
That was a big blow.
That was a big blow. And you look at guys that they brought up, like Tyler Goodell. He's had a few bright spots here and there, but the Phillies, their outfield is just not very good.
Yeah,
I like
Tyler Goodell. I mean, you got him in the Rule 5 draft. Yeah, something that they did with Odubel Herrera in the last couple of years. Excuse me, they've had Odubel Herrera, and he's coming from the Rule 5 draft and showing that he's good. And I feel like they tried to replicate that with Tyler Goodell, but he's just not major league ready. I feel like you send him down to AAA, you know, maybe even switch him up with Crawford, see if Crawford wants some time if you think he's ready, and develop him a little bit more because I feel like he's not the hitter that you want, and his arm probably could use a little bit more strength. But yeah, I agree with you. Borges just hitting over 200 and not really producing for the Phillies. But, I mean, for the time being, that's what the Phillies have. That's what they have to work with.
They're also talking about trading for Nick Markakis. I do not like that deal at all. I mean, they've got enough prospects that are in the minors that are getting ready to come up in a few years. Nick Markakis has been up in the league for a while. I believe he's 31 or 32. But he's on a huge contract, and it's only year 2 out of 4. He's only batting .234 with 1 home run.
And, yeah, Nick Markakis, I liked him as a player with the Orioles.
Yeah, he was a good player.
But, I mean, his career is like Howard's and Ruiz's. It's on the downside. There's nowhere really for him in the future, which is where the Phillies are. They're Phillies winning is in the future. And I just don't see Nick Markakis as part of that future. Maybe you get him, say we get him this season. The Phillies, I don't know, use him for the rest of the season. What do you do?
Put him in right field.
Put him in right field, let him waste the rest of his season, trade him away at the end of the season. But how many prospects are you going to eat up by just getting that one guy?
Well, there's just one thing I want to bring up. With left field, the Phillies, Cody Ashley, when they moved him to left field when they brought
Michael
Franco up. They need somebody like him only because he has the experience in the pros. You know, he's played third base, making the switch out to left field when they brought Franco up. They put him in the minors so he can learn how to play the position better. When he's coming back from his injury and he's done his rehab, I think that they'll put him in the lineup and he'll be able to show these kids how to play.
Definitely needs to work on the defense because he is an absolute defensive liability. It's like having a right-handed Dominic Brown back in the outfield.
And yeah, for Cody Ashley, I mean, as soon as he gets back off his rehabs, and he did have an injury in the beginning of the season, as soon as he gets off that, I feel like that also might be an opportune time to, you know, send down Tyler Goodell, let Cody Ashley come up, prove that he's still the player that he was a year or 2 ago when he was one of the, you know, hottest players and most popular ones on the Phillies, and, you know, show that the Phillies' young talent isn't necessarily 21 to 23 years old. You have guys like Ashley that are up in the 25s to 27s that are really going to help the team win.
What about David Lowe? What are you going to do with him? Are you going to send Peter Borges down that way he can work on his swing and his offense?
I don't like David Lowe. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the way he performs. I think it's just a personal thing. I feel like he's an unnecessary need that the team has, and I feel like guys like Cody Ashley, you know, they're a lot better than him. And having David Lowe, they got him near the end of spring training. I feel like that wasn't a good move because he doesn't. Honestly, I don't think he sees that much playing time anyway. So I mean, with the guys that they have, the prospects that they have, with Cody Ashley coming back, to me, David Lowe wasn't really a good option for them. And guys, that does it for this Fan on TV Sports segment. Very good job by you guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Logan Perrone, Bryce Palcko, PJ Sullivan, signing off.